Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I want to talk a little bit about the corona vaccine and why a lot of communities, especially communities of color, might be a little bit trepidatious and a little bit scared of getting the corona vaccine due to past history. Um, in this country, as well as other countries, but I'm telling you specifically about this country, minorities and people of color have been persecuted and oppressed um, economically through redlining laws, financially through refusals to refusals of banks to give them loans on houses. They've been oppressed physically in the case of African Americans as slaves. But another way that they've been oppressed is medically. A lot of times when they want to come up with new vaccines or new cures for things like cancer, things like diabetes, and specifically the one I'm going to talk about here, in reference to the African American community, is syphilis. In the 1930s, uh, they did they wanted to come up with a vaccine for syphilis, so they ran various tests on African Americans, which almost led to the extinction of African Americans in in the South. These testing, and prior to that, in the early 1900s, they also had the eugenics movement, which was spearheaded by Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. And what eugenics basically was a process of weeding out those who were deemed intellectually, physically, or genetically weak uh, by comparison. So when she wanted to spearhead the abortionist movement in the early 1900s, she basically used African Americans as guinea pigs, just like how they did in the Tuskegee Experiment with syphilis. Another example is in the island of Puerto Rico. In the island of Puerto Rico, as I mentioned before in my Puerto Rican video, they wanted to pioneer birth control. And
What a waiting game, and such a significant one. Everybody waiting to see whether the FDA is going to grant emergency use authorization.
and they and excuse me, and they pioneered in order to pioneer these new birth control pills and vaccines. They used Puerto Rican women as guinea pigs, and the goal behind this, all these things, was to either eliminate or sterilize certain minority populations, making them easier to control. Like a lot of times when you hear politicians talk about, they talk about, we need to reduce the global population. A lot of times, what they're talking about is the minority population, because if you look around the world, um, white people, people of European descent, Caucasians, are the global minority in the world. Most of the world is brown. Most of the world is Asian. You know, China has a tremendously large population. India has a tremendously large population. Egypt has a tremendously large population. Africa, the Caribbean, they all have larger populations than Europe. And one of the things that European people, European Americans, European Australians, European New Zealanders are afraid of is immigration, because they know that they happen to be the majority in these countries, but the countries surrounding them in those countries, they're not demographically the majority. So they want to try to limit um, limit immigration to those countries from surrounding countries. Here in the United States, you have the Spanish countries, the Latino countries. They're all surrounding the United States, a tremendous amount of West Indian countries too. But when they cannot limit them through laws and through immigration, the second way they do it is through medical. So they did this in the Caribbean, like I said, with birth control. They did this Margaret Sanger, eugenics, Planned Parenthood with abortion, and they did this in the United States with syphilis, the Tuskegee Experiment from the 1920s to the 1970s. So, and by the way, the United States is not the only nation to do this sort of thing. They did this in Canada with Native Americans. They did this in the United States with Native Americans, smallpox blankets. They did this in, you see the name in the description box, Joseph Mengele, who was a Nazi doctor. While he was discovering all these new medicines, he used the Jewish population as guinea pigs during the 1940s. They used Australian Aboriginals as guinea pigs when they were taking over that country. And of course, as we know, a couple of years ago, like 10 years ago, they forcibly sterilized the Ethiopian Jewish population in Israel. So while this was done to European Jews during the Holocaust, it was also done done by European Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, to Ethiopians, Ethiopian Jews recently, and before that, in the 60s and 70s, it was done to the Yemeni Jewish population, the population of the Jewish people from Yemen, known as the Mizrahi population. So this has been done over and over and over by white society to minorities. Um, we know of King Leopold's wiping out of the Congolese. Um, we know of uh, what the Nazis did in Tanzania before they started to do experiments on the Jews. They did them in Tanzania. That was the first Holocaust. That was the precursor to the Holocaust. Was Germany's actions in East Africa, in Tanzania and Namibia. So when you look back at past history, it is important to note that be very cautious of these medicines, because although these things lead to advancements in society, medically and scientifically, you don't want your people to be used as a guinea pig. And remember, a lot of this is all about population control. They know that they're a global minority. They're always you have white right wing white people always just talking, going on and on about white genocide, this and that, talking about a wall. So they can't limit immigration. So they try to limit you by killing you off and having your women not have any children, to sterilize your women and sterilize your men. So when you go out there and you see like the first woman that got the vaccine was an African American, a Caribbean American black woman. Why is this? Are they trying to make the are they trying to make the African American community the face of this vaccine, just in case something goes horribly wrong? Oh well, we just knocked out a couple of African Americans or a couple of Latinos. It doesn't matter because we didn't want them here anyway. Remember, the reason why we say Black Lives Matter is because they don't think Black lives do matter. They say they do. They say that the word black is included in all lives matter. But if it did, when black men and women are unjustly shot by police, we wouldn't have to enunciate that black lives actually do matter. So if they don't think they matter in terms of police, why would you think they matter in terms of the casualties of what they consider medical advancement. And over the next coming years, over the next coming months, rather, they'll start to push this by using a lot of hip hop celebrities, a lot of celebrities that appeal to people of color, like Cardi B and all them, that are parts of the political establishment in order to get you to take the vaccine. They'll show you Kamala Harris, they'll show you Cardi B, they'll show you Joe Biden, people that you like or people that you're predisposed to like, in order so that you could take this vaccine. But just remember, they consider you undesirable, and they don't want you here anyway, and they can't. And in the case of African Americans, they can't really throw you out. So what can they do but kill you? And Puerto Ricans too, because remember, Puerto Ricans are American citizens, and they've been trying to wipe us out for the longest also. So peace. Guys, just be cautious about this COVID vaccine, because I've seen a lot of reports where you come down with Bell's palsy, where you come down with sweats, and who knows in the future if it may affect fertility. I'm not sure it does affect fertility, but I've heard that it does. So this is one of the reasons why African American communities and Latino communities would be distrustful of this vaccine, and what makes me personally raise an eyebrow. Now, I'm not the complete anti-vax family. I I say, do your research first before you trust anything that these politicians or these celebrities say. Because um, remember the attitude of Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution. While the people were storming Bastille trying to get just bread, she arrogantly said, "Well, let them eat cake." How do you know our modern day politicians won't do the same thing? How they won't be so dismissive of our concerns, our grievances, and our cares, and even our lives, as to tell us that we can eat cake, looking down on us contemptuously, like we're just pins in a bowling alley. Oh, we're expendable. Peace. And like I said, be cautious and be safe. And study this vaccine before you decide to take it.